Billionaire's chess joke turns incredible as Maid's daughter, a hidden genius, exposes her talent. Emma sat on the fringes of the glamorous chess tournament, her heart pounding not from excitement but from the weight of her reality. She had bathed in the warmth of sunlight streaming through the opulent venue, surrounded by the laughter and chatter of the affluent, a stark reminder of the glaring divide in her world. A billionaire's throwaway jab about those who don't belong at the board echoed ominously in her mind, igniting an aching determination within her. As she watched the elegantly dressed competitors maneuver their pieces with finesse, she felt an agonizing wave of invisibility wash over her. This was a world she didn't belong to, no matter how fiercely her grandfather's spirit fueled her passion. Each swoosh of the clock, loud and menacing in this arena of privilege, seemed to draw her closer to a seamless cycle of longing and despair. Having grown up in her mother's shadow, tirelessly cleaning the homes of those draped in wealth, the stark contrast felt suffocating. Emma questioned herself, was it too bold to believe that she could challenge an elite chess player one day? Even as she recited her strategies in the quiet of her room, meticulously practicing her moves against a mirror, doubts crept in. Was her voice loud enough to resonate over the whispers of the privileged, who saw only the surface of her life? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The tournament unfolded as a high-stakes thriller, but the overwhelming isolation loomed larger with every passing moment. Then, unexpectedly, a ray of hope descended in the form of Mr. Thompson, a retired chess master whose keen gaze spotted Emma amid the chaos. His weathered hands wrapped around a chess piece spoke of untold stories and unfulfilled promises. He recognized her potential, provoking a swirl of emotions within her, a blend of skepticism and budding hope. Could this stranger, with no ties to her reality, really guide her toward realizing her dreams? As she contemplated stepping into the tournament herself, an avalanche of insecurities crashed down. Every instinct in her screamed to retreat, fearing ridicule from the same people who casually disregarded her existence. What if she stood up and was met with laughter, just as the billionaire's joke once hinted? Yet within her pressed the urge to stand tall, to challenge not only the players but the prejudice that sought to define her. The pressure mounted, each second punctuated by the call of destiny battling the longing for safety. As the final moments of her indecision approached, Emma felt the stirring of something profound deep inside her. This was a chance not just to play chess, but to declare her worth against all odds. It was a moment thick with tension, amplified by her swirling thoughts of who she was and who she could rise to be. Just as she locked eyes with the billionaire afar, an unsettling question echoed in her mind: could she truly turn her plight into victory, or would the world continue to silence her? Emma's heart raced as she wrestled with her thoughts. She watched Mr. Thompson move gracefully among the tables, interacting with seasoned players, exchanging insights, his presence a stark contrast to hers. For the first time, she experienced the unsettling notion that she was not merely an observer. The chessboard, always a symbol of strategy and command, pulsed with a new energy, her energy. Driven by a sudden wave of defiance, Emma took a deep breath, a mixture of fear and exhilaration coursing through her. She could no longer remain a statue at the edge of this vibrant world. It was time to confront her fears, time to relinquish the cloak of obscurity she wore so carefully. With each step towards the registration table, she envisioned herself as a contender and not just a maid's daughter. Would it be humiliating? Absolutely, but what if it became a catalyst for change? A single game, even a single move, could set an irreversible transformation in motion. Each click of the clock became a mantra in her mind: you belong. You can do this. As her turn to register drew near, the voices around her morphed into a dissonance of apprehension and excitement. Dressed in a long, modest skirt and a thrift store blouse, she felt the weight of judgment sear into her skin. They would see her for what she was: a maid's daughter. What would they think? She could practically hear the collective snickers aimed at her presumed ineptitude. Yet, an unexpected resolve hardened within. These assumptions were not her reality. Glancing over her shoulder, Emma caught Mr. Thompson's supportive gaze. He nodded, and in that moment of connection, she felt buoyed by his belief in her potential. Striving for the validation she so desperately needed, she stepped up to the desk and declared her intention with a firm voice, surprising herself with her boldness. The registrar raised an eyebrow but entered her name without comment. Her first match was against a middle-aged, well-dressed opponent, a player whose arrogance dripped from every calculated move. Emma caught herself second-guessing her strategies, painfully aware of the distance between their worlds. The board stretched before her, each piece an embodiment of the battle for self-affirmation she was about to undertake. As the game began, she fought against a tide of doubt, meticulously planning her strategy with every move. The subtle shift of her mindset propelled her forward. She was not just defending, she was attacking a long-held narrative about herself. With each capture, she silenced the taunts from the past, the echoes of doubt voiced by society. Gradually, she even began to anticipate her opponent's moves, sensing his reluctance as she capitalized on his oversights. The sharpness of her focus sharpened her instincts, and as the board transformed into a reflection of her inner battle, she started to believe in the validity of her genius. When she finally made the decisive move, claiming victory in the first match, the room fell silent. Shock etched across her opponent's face. Triumph surged within. This was merely the beginning. The thrill of success filled her with a fierce elation, a feeling she had only dreamed of. Yet, just as she allowed herself a moment to bask, the realization set in: winning here could be both a blessing and a curse. With the attention on her now, how would she navigate the judgment from those who had once scoffed at her? Emma's mind buzzed with questions as she faced the next challenge ahead, now acutely aware of the stakes that awaited her beyond this victory. The real battle was only beginning, and she was determined to come out stronger on the other side. As she prepared for her next match, the tension in her chest blossomed. Could she sustain this momentum, or would the tables turn against her once again? Emma's heart thudded in her chest as she moved to the center of the room, feeling the weight of 1,000 eyes on her. Each murmur and whisper seemed to weave into a tapestry of expectation and skepticism. But with her victory still vibrant in her mind, she pushed past the trepidation. Winning her first game had ignited something within her, a spark of defiance that forced her to confront the lies she had whispered to herself for years. As she set her pieces up for her next match, she caught a glimpse of herself in the reflection of the glass panel adjacent to the chess hall. The young woman staring back wore a skirt that seemed out of place in a sea of polished suits, but there was resolve in her eyes that had never existed before. The complexity of her situation began to unfold. She was not only trying to win a game but dismantling the very narrative that had contained her. Her next opponent, a wiry man who wore an expression of practiced arrogance, adjusted his glasses and smirked as he scrutinized her setup. Emma felt a familiar wave of doubt wash over her, but this time, she fought back. The game began. Her opponent played aggressively, launching into a series of rapid openings that betrayed his anticipation of an easy victory. Emma's heart raced as she matched his speed. Her fingers danced over the pieces with newfound confidence. Each move was a declaration: she had every right to compete, and it was time for her talents to outshine the skepticism. With each calculated maneuver, she elucidated her style: aggressive but deliberate, attacking while maintaining robust defenses. Her mind crisscrossed over strategies, melding her newfound confidence with her calm analytical instincts. The once daunting board transformed into a battlefield of sorts, a space where she could finally rewrite the script of her life. A sudden oversight from her opponent presented a gap. She hesitated, summoning the echoes of her past. Each critique, each defeated expectation lingered on her consciousness. But something inside her, that latent courage, overrode the fears. Emma seized the moment and advanced, taking his knight with a bold move that resonated loudly in the silent arena. A twinge of disbelief crossed her opponent's face, mirrored only by the faint gasps surrounding her. The momentum shifted rapidly, anticipation crackled in the air like electricity. As the match unfolded, she noticed that even Mr. Thompson had shifted from passive observer to active supporter. He gestured subtly, guiding her through the maze of her thoughts with unspoken encouragement, his presence a bastion against the evolving challenge. As the final pieces began to fall, Emma felt a rush of clarity. The thrill of the game blossomed within her, similar to the elation she had experienced during her victory against the middle-aged player. Each successful capture whispered affirmations into her ear, dismantling the walls she had built around her identity. A MAID'S daughter was rising as a contender, unfurling into her potential. When she finally orchestrated the checkmate, the room erupted in a whirlwind of shock and admiration. This time, Emma didn't mask the wave of joy that swept over her. It was raw, pure, and radiant. Yet, as she soaked in the moment of triumph, a flicker of uncertainty slithered into her thoughts. This validation felt tantalizing but precarious. With every win, expectations soared higher, and judgment sharpened. The next round beckoned, and as the latest adversary approached, she sensed the growing hostility from some of the spectators. Would they cheer her victories or curse them? A potent mix of determination and apprehension coursed through her veins. Could she endure the weight of others' expectations without faltering? With a steely gaze, she took her seat at the board, breath held tightly in her chest. This was not just a game of chess but a fight for her evolving identity. As the clock began its relentless tick toward the next challenge, Emma realized that her journey through this world would necessitate something beyond her chess skills. She needed to tackle the hidden complexities of self-worth that lurked in the shadows of victory, while feeling the sharp blades of jealousy and scrutiny aimed her way. The stakes were higher than ever, and she knew it was time to confront the next layer of her internal struggle. But just as the pieces were set and her mind began to strategize, a voice echoed from the crowd, questioning her right to play. "Who does she think she is?" echoed the taunting tone. The room stilled, awaiting her response. Would she rise to the occasion, or would this mark her downfall? The jibe hung in the air like a thunderclap, reverberating in the silence that followed. Emma's heart raced, not just from the pressure of competition but from the chilling sting of that question. Who did she think she was? The words curled around her mind, threatening to pull her back into the darker recesses of doubt she had just begun to escape. Yet, amidst the chaos of the crowd's whispers, another voice echoed within her, one imbued with all the resilience she had discovered in her recent victories. She could either shrink in response to the taunt or rise to challenge it. Emma took a deep breath, grounding herself, feeling the weight of her newly claimed identity beneath her skin. With determination, she focused on the chessboard, blocking out the noise. Her opponent, a broad-shouldered man with a sharp jaw and restless fingers, adjusted his seat, ready to pounce on her perceived weaknesses. He wore an expression of smug anticipation, but she refused to meet his gaze. Instead, she locked her eyes on the chess pieces. Each figure stood waiting to embody her courage, her resolve. The game commenced with rapid precision, her opponent capitalizing on her initial hesitation, launching an aggressive opening. Every piece he moved was laden with expectation. Emma could imagine the spectators, some leaning in with interest, others leaning back with skepticism. Their curiosity hung like a string, ready to snap if she faltered. But Emma had resolved, like a knight crossing the board, to move forward against the tide. She recalled the strategies she had meticulously studied, each carefully forged through trial and error, lessons learned from more experienced players. With a calm determination, she started to counterattack. Each move became a defiant statement, challenging the narrative cast upon her. A pawn inched forward, her fingers steady as they navigated the familiar patterns toward ascension. She played deliberately, maintaining focus while the taunts swirled incessantly in the background. As the game wore on, she could feel the tide shifting. The man countered her moves with increasing desperation, unable to predict her unwavering will. She was not simply a maid's daughter at this moment, she was a formidable adversary, challenging everyone who thought her existence was less than worthy on the board. With every captured piece, the embarrassment of the initial insult transformed into a fire burning in her chest, fueling her each time her opponent faltered. He looked increasingly frustrated, and she felt invigorated. A realization, sharp and bright, struck her: confidence could rise from confrontation, and winning was not simply about the game but about reclaiming her narrative. It was her knight against his rook, and everything danced on that delicate edge. With one final move, she maneuvered her pieces into position, forcing her opponent into a check-like grip that left him scrambling for a response. The crowd began to murmur as they sensed the shift in power, and Emma's pulse quickened, exhilaration bubbling beneath her calm exterior. The final checkmate descended upon the board with the finality of thunder. Emma leaned back, a wave of triumph surging through her. It carried with it not just the joy of victory, but the liberation of her self-doubt. She had dismantled the critic lodged in her heart, but just as the realization sank in, her opponent's voice cut through the echoing applause. "This isn't over." The challenge in his tone snaked through her newfound euphoria, reminding her that the battle for her identity extended beyond the board. Emma braced herself, knowing this moment was more than just a game. Turning her attention to the spectators, she understood they were not just witnesses to a match, they were the judges of her worth. She needed to prove that she was not a fleeting headline but a force to be reckoned with. The next round awaited, and with it, not just the chance to play but an opportunity to redefine herself once more. Would she continue to conquer, or would her past whisper again, hindering her quest? The chess pieces were set, and now her internal conflict was ready to unfold in full view. The air crackled with anticipation as Emma faced her opponent again, the tension palpable between them. Each heartbeat seemed to echo in her ears like an ominous drum, the earlier taste of victory still fresh on her tongue but mingled with the bitterness of the unresolved challenge. She had defeated him once, yet she understood that this rematch was layered more than a mere game. The whispers in the crowd were no longer about her skill alone but rather the perception they held of her identity, one that she had been wrestling with since the moment she sat down at the chessboard. It was the embodiment of every doubt, every snide remark echoing in her mind that demanded to be silenced. Emma fixed her gaze on the pieces ahead. Each one represented a choice, a move she could make. She accused herself of being reckless for feeling confident, but self-doubt was a familiar adversary. It lurked in her shadows, waiting for a moment of hesitation to pounce. In the split seconds before the match began, Emma reflected on the lessons she had gleaned. Her mentor's voice emerged in her memory, guiding her not just on strategy but on the substance of courage itself. "Courage isn't the absence of fear, Emma. It's the will to confront it," he said. She inhaled deeply, steadying herself against the rising tide of anxiety pressing on her chest. A flurry of moves initiated the game, and Emma felt herself reliving the rhythm of battle. Her opponent, eager to showcase his prowess, soon devolved into desperation, mirroring their last encounter. She recognized the patterns, the aggressive maneuvers designed to intimidate. Now aware of his weaknesses, she pushed back with calculated aggression. Her fingers danced over the board, executing plays that showcased her burgeoning confidence. She questioned the narratives others had tried to build around her. Was she still just the MAID'S daughter, or could she be something more? Strategy unfolded beneath her grasp, unearthing a hidden wisdom she hadn't acknowledged before, a sense of belonging forged not through wealth or status but through skill and tenacity. She began captivating the audience, drawing them into her world, where determination trampled roots of doubt. Each piece captured was a notch against the doubts branding her existence, and with every forced remnant of her opponent's defenses, she rewrote her story. As she maneuvered her pieces, her thoughts spiraled deeper. What had her failures taught her? They were not mere setbacks but stepping stones, keys to unlocking the hidden talent within herself. The moment crystallized into clarity. She wasn't merely a contender in a game. She was a symbol of resilience, someone who refused to be constrained by their origins. The crowd's murmurs grew louder, revealing the palpable tension that had transformed into excitement. With one bold move, she placed her opponent in check once more. His expression twisted, a combination of disbelief and frustration radiating from him. Emma relished it. This wasn't just about the moves on the board but about dismantling the confines of how others viewed her. The final blow came: swift checkmate. As she leaned back in triumph, the thrill was intoxicating. A part of her flowed with exhilaration while another felt the looming weight of expectation. She had defied the odds, but a new message pulsed through her mind, a whisper of what had yet to come. "I will find a way to turn the past into an ally," she vowed silently, her resolve deepening like roots finding nutrients beneath the surface. But her opponent's earlier words echoed ominously. This isn't over. With the next challenge lurking on the horizon, Emma's thoughts turned to the future, stoking the fire within her. The path ahead would demand not only her gameplay but also a confrontation with the beliefs she still secretly harbored. This was only the beginning, and in her heart, she knew another battle awaited, one that extended beyond the game itself, to the very core of her identity. Would she find clarity amidst the storm of doubt, or would shadows of her past threaten to rise again? The arena was set, the chessboard gleamed under the lights. Emma felt the pull of destiny, stirring the air with possibilities. A series of loud cheers erupted from the audience, but the applause felt muted in Emma's ears, a mere soundtrack to the whirlwind brewing inside her mind. The exhilaration of victory collided sharply with the dread of what lay ahead. The payoff of her recent win felt ephemeral, as if it were already slipping through her fingers. With the crowd's energy uplifting her, questions swirled in the depths of her thoughts. What did it mean to defy expectations? What does it mean to be a genius in a world that still wanted to label her? These reflections were pulling her in opposing directions, creating a tension that mirrored the throbbing excitement of the crowd. For the first time since she had grasped the game, she longed for a moment of stillness where she could put herself together again. The next opponent loomed on her horizon, a wealthy competitor, known not just for his skills but for the ruthless pragmatism that characterized his victories. Could she face this new challenger with the same fervor that had empowered her in her last match, or would she crumble under the weight of their expectations? He wielded power not just over the board, but within the social dynamics that dictated her existence, a reminder that no victory could erase the lines society tried to draw around her. Suddenly, Emma felt a surge of determination. She needed to cultivate a more profound understanding of herself, not just as a player, but as an individual. What unique insights could she bring to her game? Every loss she faced had ingrained lessons within her. She remembered her mentor's words, adapt and overcome. It wasn't enough to match her opponent's move for move, she needed to take command, to evolve her mentality away from fear and toward innovation. Days turned into nights as she immersed herself in practice, seeking every piece of wisdom embedded within the folkloric tales of chess greats. Each session was a confrontation with her own limitations, a rigorous exploration of her mind where doubt met creativity head-on. Emma experimented with unconventional strategies, revisiting past games to unearth decisions she had made out of fear rather than intuition. She sought to reclaim control over her narrative by reshaping her game. Emma also explored the concept of psychological dominance, reinforcing her understanding of the mental intricacies involved in competition. She journaled her thoughts, tracking the evolution of her self-awareness as she learned to harness both the creative aspects of the game and the analytical strengths that molded her strategy. The fear that once loomed over her began to act not as an obstacle, but as a catalyst for growth, giving way to an unwavering resolve to confront any challenge that crossed her path. But as the time approached for her next match, doubt flickered again, this time like a whispering shadow across her confidence. Would her preparation suffice? Would her emotional armor withstand the harsh scrutiny of the audience and her opponent? She stood at the edge of the chessboard, pieces waiting to be moved, battles yet to be fought. With her heart racing, she realized that the true game wasn't just on the board before her. It was to accept her identity and believe in it fiercely. Emma took a deep breath, gazing at the intricately carved pieces, each symbolizing her potential and her challenges. The light glinted off their polished surfaces, revealing hidden depths she had yet to explore. Committing herself deeply to growth and resilience, she reminded herself of a simple truth: this was her story to write, move by move, each choice reflecting not just her skill but who she was becoming. She felt the anticipation in the air as the next tournament loomed closer. Emma understood now that victory was not simply about winning, it was the testament of her transformation, the journey of a girl who would not be defined by her past but by her very will to rise against it. As she prepared for the confrontation ahead, the stakes shifted beyond the board. The time had come for Emma to face not just her competitor, but the lingering doubts that had kept her tethered to the identity she sought to escape. What would happen when she confronted the realities of her past, and would she be strong enough to rewrite her legacy? The tournament hall buzzed with energy as participants and spectators formed a tapestry of anticipation and expectation, but Emma's world had narrowed to the chessboard before her. The ornate pieces made from polished wood gleamed under the bright lights, yet they felt like silent sentinels waiting for her next calculated movement. Each drawled tick of the clock pulled her deeper into contemplation. It was now or never. Emma focused on breathing, the steady rhythm calming the chaos within her. She reflected on the journey that brought her here, the countless hours spent rehearsing strategies, absorbing theories, and the resolve to break free from the labels that clung to her. Yet in that moment of stillness, a dark cloud loomed. Despite her physical readiness, her mind flickered with remnants of doubt. Was she truly prepared? The stakes loomed higher with her opponent, a player bred in wealth and privilege, whose victories only bolstered his bravado. As she glanced toward him, charisma emanated from his confident posture, an aura that threatened to overshadow her own accomplishments. A bitter taste lingered in her mouth. Could she embody the calm determination she had worked so hard to cultivate? Or would his overbearing presence diminish her spirit? With a ferocious internal battle raging, Emma recalled the resources she had tapped into for growth, the strategies and emotional insights she had fought to uncover. This opponent, like many others before him, was merely the next chapter in her story. She would not allow him to become the author of her fate. Emma shifted her focus back to the board, recalling the unconventional plays she had practiced. With her first move, she decided to unshackle herself from convention and take control of the game. The pieces danced, each movement a testament to her burgeoning confidence. The crowd's murmurs faded into an ambient buzz, allowing her to inhabit the moment fully. In the midst of intense competition, she felt not just the pressure to perform but a dawning clarity, a realization that each piece represented not solely tactics but facets of herself. The knight reflected her need for agility, the bishop, her strategic foresight. Every game would echo her pursuit of development, a reflection of potential unbound by societal constraints. As the match plowed forward, Emma began to shape the flow of the game, manipulating strategies learned from both triumph and folly. The way she played reflected not just her understanding of the game but her spirit infused in every move. Confidence surged within her. But then, just as Emma began to find her rhythm, her opponent unleashed a flurry of calculated aggression. The tables shifted, she felt her heart rate spike. It was a direct confrontation, not just against him but against the very fear she had worked so hard to dismantle. The intensity of the moment forced her to revisit the doubt that had scuttled in the shadows. Was she truly enough? In that narrow window, she remembered the simplicity of her journey: adapt and overcome. Pausing to survey the battlefield once more, she pushed aside the weight of scrutiny, drawing strength from the belief that her identity lay not within the outcome but in her approach. With renewed focus, Emma forged a new path, one that mirrored her own evolution. Each move became clearer, more decisive, layered in the complexity of her acquired wisdom. Yet, just as suddenly, her opponent unveiled an unexpected tactic, challenging her resolve in the cruelest way. Was this the moment her transformation would either unfold into brilliance or tumble into chaos? Would she rise above, or fall victim to the fear of defeat? As her fingers hovered over an impending move, the question trembled in her mind: could she transform this moment of pressure into a pinnacle of personal triumph? The clock ticked steadily on, but within Emma, time seemed suspended, holding her breath until she made her choice. The world held its collective sentiment, but it was her voice echoing her legacy in the decision at her fingertips. Would she dare to seize the moment and etch her story into the fabric of the game? Emma's heart pounded as she processed the sudden shift in the game. The intensity radiating from her opponent's moves permeated the air, a tangible push that jolted her senses. With a deep breath, she began to analyze his aggressive strategy. It was bold but predictable, banking on the intimidation that came with his reputation. She had encountered this tactic before: proud arrogance leading to hasty overreach. Her fingers itched to react, but this time was different. Instead of falling back on instinct, she let the moments pass, observing the chessboard like a living entity. Each piece began to tell a story, whispering strategies she had yet to explore. The entanglements of the game mirrored the complexities of her journey. The pieces were not just soldiers in a battle but reflections of her own ascent. Emma's mind raced as she programmatically dissected the unfolding battle. The opponent had a clear line of attack, yet the path towards his victory remained littered with vulnerabilities. His pieces advanced, aggressive but lacking the layered defenses that a more thoughtful player would construct. In moments of self-doubt, she had taken flight. Now, she could remain rooted, demonstrating the growth that had flourished through hardship. Each pawn represented a step, each knight a lesson. If she allowed her identity to intertwine with her gameplay, she could transcend labels. Reflecting on her inner voice, she acknowledged the gentle nudges of encouragement she had long ignored. "You belong here," it whispered, instilling a deep-seated resolve within her. Emma could channel her tenacity. The trials she had faced as the underdog fueled her competitive spirit. This battle was more than a match, it was an assertion of her worth. With newfound clarity, she moved her knight not just as a tactical maneuver but as an embodiment of her defiance. She could almost visualize the surprise in her opponent's eyes. Would this bold shift expose his overconfidence or merely solidify the narrative of her defeat? The crowd erupted in murmurs, eyes flitting between Emma's decisive play and her opponent's hardening expression. She dared a glance at him, his facade of elegance flickered, exposing a glimpse of uncertainty beneath the bravado. This was her moment to take control of the narrative. As she contemplated her next strategic move, her mind sharpened, echoing lessons learned amid whispers of failure and heartache. Each previous loss had held a lesson, a chisel carving her identity from stone to marble. She was not merely the maid's daughter but a strategist, a thinker capable of transcending expectations. The unpredictable nature of this match demanded engagement, and she was resolute to meet the challenge head-on. The intensity of her focus thickened the air, each second ticked with the rhythm of her pulse. She shifted her gaze from the board to the clock. Time continued its relentless march, yet she felt a curious stillness settle in her chest. Could this be the tipping point? A moment of resolve that would tilt the scales in her favor? Every heartbeat pulsed with the belief that she could indeed solidify her identity. A chess player set on confronting her destiny rather than running from it. Emma, fueled by a mix of fear and unwavering determination, crafted her next move with careful precision, unwilling to compromise her self-worth or her path. The air between them crackled with intense possibility as her fingers danced over the pieces, and she made her choice bold, audacious, yet calculated. But the game was far from over. As her opponent narrowed his eyes, he clearly sensed the shift in momentum, and his demeanor morphed into a mask of furious resolve. The question loomed, had she merely opened the door to victory, or had she unwittingly invited a backlash that would push her to her limits? The tension spiraled as they both braced for another round of fireworks on this battleground of strategy. Emma was once again faced with the haunting realization, in this relentless push for self-discovery, how far would she let herself go? Would she become a casualty of this game, or could she rise from the ashes, transformed yet again? Determined to embrace the storm brewing ahead, she readied herself for the next wave. Emma's mind raced as she absorbed the implications of her last move. The knight's displacement on the board felt symbolic. For so long, she had hidden behind fear and doubt, but now, she was boldly declaring her presence. The uncertainty that clouded her opponent's features energized her. It was evidence that her strategy was working, yet, the weight of the moment was critical. She knew her next move could define not just this game, but the trajectory of her entire journey. Could she sustain this audacity, or would she falter under the pressure? A sliver of doubt crept in, and she shook it off like dew off a fresh spring leaf. The crowd remained a swirling ocean of anticipation, their breaths held tight. She could feel their collective energy, fueling her resolve. This was not merely about winning a chess match, it was a transformation unfolding in real time. Each moment of hesitation felt like shackles threatening to claw her back into her old identity. She examined the board meticulously. The pieces stood as guardians of her choices, each move resonating with significance. As her opponent began plotting his counterattack, she focused on the interplay of strengths and weaknesses. He had a tendency to underestimate his rivals, often blinded by his own arrogance. Why let this opportunity slip away? With each passing second, she felt the need to command the board with an intricate blend of creativity and logic. The lesson was clear: only by embracing the unexpected could she truly leverage her potential. It was time to surprise him once more. Her fingers hovered over a bishop, poised not only for attack but also for defense, a dual purpose that encapsulated her growth. In this moment, she understood that every choice had layers. She was no longer the girl thrust into the shadows. Instead, she was forging her own light amidst the crushing darkness of doubt. Emma knew that courage was often misunderstood as recklessness. It was not enough to simply respond to her opponent's moves, she needed to instigate. Casting her mind back, she recalled a particularly tough lesson from her past, a match lost not from lack of skill, but from missing the chance to be bold. So, with a surge of confidence, she settled on a plan. She would sacrifice a pawn to bait her opponent into thinking he had the upper hand, drawing him into a false sense of security. It would require the delicate balance of aggression and subtlety, a reflection of her very essence. As she executed the move, her heart fluttered. The sacrifice echoed her willingness to forego the safe path, to embrace the unknown. She observed her opponent intently, watching how the flicker of triumph coursed through him as he took the bait. For Emma, it was a release. The tension in her muscles faded as she recognized this was not just about chess, it mirrored her quest for acceptance and recognition. Each pawn she pushed forward represented another struggle overcome, another boundary transcended. She was refusing to relent, yet, lurking in the back of her mind was the awareness of what this choice would mean. Would it lead her into deeper waters, or was it simply a calculated step in a larger gambit? The ultimate test of her growth lay ahead, as unpredictable as the fabric of the game itself, and then, in that poignant duality, an epiphany struck her. Perhaps this entire match was a reflection of life, the audacity to risk, the courage to stand her ground, and the strength to redefine who she was meant to be. What her opponent couldn't comprehend was that she had nothing to lose and everything to gain. Suddenly, the clock dragged time to a standstill. Each tick resonated like a battle drum, heightening the stakes. Emma knew that every second counted. The intensity in the atmosphere thickened, and she felt the eyes of the audience upon her, watching her every move, waiting for her next directive. As she prepared herself for the following act, she couldn't shake the unsettling feeling that this match would be more than just a game. It was the manifestation of her greatest challenge and the potential crucible for a greater destiny. What revelations awaited her in this crucible of strategy, and how would they reshape her unfolding tale? Emma steadied her breath and prepared to meet the vortex of conflict head-on, recognizing that this was the precipice of a new beginning. With her mind ignited and the weight of the game pressing upon her shoulders, Emma took a moment to refocus amidst the cacophony of the crowd. The stakes had never felt higher, not just for this match, but for the very narrative of her life. As she carefully observed the board, anticipation simmered in her chest, stoking the flames of her determination. No longer just the girl emerging from the shadows, she was an evolving strategist ready to seize the life she'd always dreamed of. The next move was pivotal. Her opponent, likely blinded by the prospect of an easy victory, failed to discern the depth of her strategy. Emma felt a rush of adrenaline as she considered her choices. She could entrap him in his own arrogance while demonstrating her profound grasp of the game. With each piece she moved, she realized she held not just a strategic position but the power of self-actualization. Emboldened, Emma sacrificed her pawn, baiting her opponent in a calculated ploy. As his gaze flickered with triumph when he captured it, she yearned to smirk. Each piece on that board represented her trials and triumph steps towards reclaiming her identity. The sacrifice wasn't just about a single move, it was a declaration, a mark of defiance against the prejudices she had faced all her life. The crowd seemed to breathe with her, a collective anticipation bubbling beneath the surface. Emma thrived on their energy, pulling strength from their hopes for her success. She was no longer enduring the weight of judgment, she was thriving in it, transforming disdain into fuel for her confidence. As her opponent moved into position, Emma recognized an opportunity to exploit his overconfidence. She unleashed her next strategy with unmatched clarity, and the pieces danced to her command. With renewed conviction, she captured his knight, pushing him toward failure while rewriting the narrative of her existence. The shift in the atmosphere was palpable. A surge of excitement coursed through the venue as onlookers registered the transformation unfolding before them. In the swirling tide of victory, Emma marveled at her evolution. This wasn't merely a chess game, it reflected the depths of her character, the grit she had sculpted from hardship. Each opponent she faced was a vessel challenging her transformation. The applause from the crowd crescendoed, awakening unfamiliar vibrations within her, a blend of pride and purpose. With each passing moment, the checkmate became not just a goal but an affirmation of her worth. Emma leaned into the final confrontation, fueled by an unwavering belief in her abilities. As she contemplated her final move, doubts flickered at the edges of her mind, seeking to disrupt her focus. But these doubts failed against her tenacity. She cast them aside, recognizing the voice of confidence that had emerged after countless battles against herself. As the board unfolded its last act, she made the decisive move. The room fell into an almost reverent silence as the pieces shifted. When she executed checkmate, time momentarily stood still. The weight lifted from her shoulders, disbelief mingled with rapture. The audience erupted into applause, a thunderous acknowledgement of her relentless spirit and newfound identity. Emma had achieved the victory, but more importantly, she'd proven to herself that her worth wasn't defined by her origins but by her drive to succeed. The applause was validation that resonated deep within her, transforming her self-image from a mere maid's daughter into an emblem of mastery and resilience. As she stood and bowed to the audience, the seeds of personal growth flourished in her heart. No longer confined to the identity of invisibility, she had conquered her fears, dismantled societal perceptions, and emerged as a formidable player, both on and off the chessboard. The journey had challenged her, stretched her capabilities and fortified her sense of worth. And with that concluding checkmate, Emma stepped firmly into the open doors of her future, ready to embrace the next chapters, challenges, and victories that awaited her. Now is your moment to stand with your transformative journey. Subscribe immediately to our channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that inspire growth and resilience. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm that helps these incredible stories reach others who need them. Don't hesitate to comment with your reactions and theories about this empowering ending. And lastly, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion, because they too deserve to witness the power of personal overcoming stories. You need to show your support now.